All right. Welcome, Blake. We've already done the pleasantries between ourselves, so we're just going to go, you know, kick things off like the grown adults that we are. This has been,
Speak
I'd
for
say, a long
yourself.
time in the making. Fine. Um, I will pretend to be a grown adult. This has been a long time in the making. Blake and I have actually never met in person. We have met over the phone and over email and things like that, which has been good enough so far. Um, we'll dig in a little bit more into Blake's background, what he's doing now, but he's got a really interesting background and he's running a very interesting company and has followed a bit of an atypical path to get there, I would say. Yeah, so I mean, I think let's just very quickly, Blake Janover, CEO, founder of Janover, and we'll dig in. But so just tell me, I guess, start from the beginning. What's a little bit about your background? Like, just give me the quick rundown.
Born and raised in New York. Um,
We're in New
uh,
York.
okay. So you want to go in Jericho in Long Island. Came down
Nice.
to South Florida in the late '90s. Always an entrepreneur. Never didn't finish college, but went back to college at 38. It's a story
Hmm.
for later, maybe. Um, Started in at the intersection of technology and real estate finance, and traveled a very long journey between there and here, and ended up pretty close to where I started. Did spend a stint of uh, approaching a decade in the Dominican Republic, more than a year of that, which was in a fishing village, another place to go perhaps. Um,
Yeah, we're gonna touch on all of these,
okay.
and maybe this will be a 10-part series. So first of all, so
I
you said
hope
always an
not. Your
entrepreneur.
your
Yeah.
viewers deserve better than that. So,
My, we'll see how many we get. It could be all 12 of them. But so you say you were always entrepreneurial. What was the first like? How did you? What was the first thing you did? How did you know?
look, I think it's I don't want to go too far back, but I could just give I could give two examples. So since I was a little kid, right, I was slinging lemonade, better than the other kids in the community. So I think, like, my father's an entrepreneur, my mother's father was an entrepreneur, my grandfather. There's uh, and I think it's part of, like, the culture in which I grew up. Um, uh, Perhaps to my mother's chagrin, because she would have preferred if I was a doctor or a lawyer, or something like that. Um, which
That's
don't.
how I grew up. You accumulated degrees for a living. That was sort of the job path.
So
Um,
yeah, so I always did it, and my first opportunity at starting something, my dad gave me the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and I went ham, and I never looked back, but always looking for a creative solution and connecting dots, my entire life.
did you what else did you do? Stock picking? Did you do other like did you dabble in other stuff, or was it just like soup and nuts, businesses?
Oh no! So I started. It's funny you say that. So I started working for a very, very small office that wanted to write, uh, uh, wanted to automate trading. So originally with e-minis, like S&P futures, and ultimately with, like, foreign currencies and foreign exchanges, and it was writing trading algorithms to create to capture arbitrage opportunities, based on technical and fundamental indicators. So, without getting too nerdy, I started doing that after I dropped out or got kicked out of college. I think it depends on, like, who you ask. Um, and
You can't get too nerdy on random walk. That is what we do. Wait, so tell me about that. So where were you in college, and how did you get kicked out or drop out? You know.
um, pass. But I did go. I went to I went to University of Florida. It was the only school I applied to. I got in. It was a great school. It was a hard school to get into when I got in there, a very long time ago. I had this, like, special Florida. How's it called? Where the state subsidizes you.
In
Whatever.
like in-state tuition? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
So,
So
yeah.
it was what we could afford, right? So it was like pick any school in Florida, and there was only one good school in Florida. No disrespect to anybody that went to FSU, but there's a spread. So
I'll disrespect them. Yeah.
so had a good time at UF, and then moved back to Boca Raton.
But I mean, if you were, it sounds like you were fairly quantitative, like you were writing code.
Yeah.
But
Well, so
I mean, yeah, where did you get into that? I mean, that's not a. I mean, that sort of sounds like a different profile, not the lemonade salesperson, but somebody who was tinkering with machines. Or were you doing
yeah,
both?
well, I was. So it's a very interesting intersection. When I was, I'll get the ages wrong, but let's say like 11 or 12 years old, maybe 12 years old. This is when Compaq started shipping computers, and I got a 14.4 modem, and I bought a book on Visual Basic, and I learned Visual Basic, and then I bought a book on Borderland C++ and taught myself Borderland C++. And I was a coder, hacker, when all of this was starting, the first, when the first AOL CD went in the mail, and the first Windows uh, uh, it was before Windows 95, whatever. So it was at the very beginning. I was very, very code oriented. Um, but I was at this interesting intersection where I had uh, this preference and ability on with like that side of my brain, um, but also at like my father's Israeli. I could schmooze. So lemonade and code. I don't know. It's kind of what we're doing now.
I mean,
So
Florida is renowned for its like, indie hacker, tech scene, right? I mean, I mean, I'm joking, obviously. Like,
it happened in
did
New
you
York.
have?
I was living in New York at the
Yeah.
time when
Okay, fine. Yeah. I
okay.
mean, even New York then wasn't really much of a scene, right? Like, there weren't a lot of. I mean, I guess if there were
there
coders,
was
they're working for hedge funds, I guess.
there was no scene in 1996, right? That didn't happen.
Yeah.
That it didn't happen yet. So I was, I wish I stayed involved on that side because I got pulled in other directions. I was I was challenged behaviorally as a young kid. Looking for a good time. I lost my focus, and
You were. It was the opposite. You weren't sufficiently challenged. You were bored and not challenged enough. Yeah.
that's definitely the case at
So,
UF. God bless them. But like, I had no interest in these foundational courses. I thought I was going to go to school and like get into like very interesting macroeconomic theory, and I got English 101 and statistics 101, and I could have cut my wrists. Like this was not a good time.
yeah. So okay, so you're writing code, or you're relatively quantitative. You, let's just say, walked out of Florida, but how did you end up with a hedge fund building automated trading models? Like, that's how does that happen?
Sort of random luck. It was like a friend of my mother and her husband was hiring. He was interviewing some smart people, and I said, "Let me try." I think I was probably like the cheaper choice if we're going to be honest with each other. Maybe I sold myself well, um, and yeah, so I did that for a little bit. But it the cool thing was there was this period where a friend of mine reached out to me and he said, "I have a million mortgage leads." And I was like, "What's a lead? What's a million? What's a mortgage?" And
Yeah.
and I helped him figure out how to monetize that, and I made like grown up money for like what I thought was grown up money for the first time in my life. And I said, "Well, I should be doing mortgage stuff," and that segued me into that business, which was
So when was this?
2000, maybe four, give or take
Oh,
five.
perfect. So you got into the mortgage lead generation business in 2004, which was a good time. Um,
Is it
I
though?
want to come back.
So I just want to put a point on that. It was a good time for a good financial outcome, for sure. It was a bad time for a kid that was super like unreasonably confident, like displaced confidence, like arrogant, uh, to think that he was that it was me. I thought I was so smart. I thought I was. I just I thought I was the bee's knees. So I got a serving of humble pie after that.
And that's in 2007, 2008, or before then?
Yeah, no, around 08, give or take.
It's interesting. I mean, I want to come back to some of this, but and I also want to get to the Dominican, which I take it's probably after 2008 would be my right. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
yeah.
Okay, so before we get there on the on the unreasonable degree of confidence, do you think like that is actually an advantage in some ways, like in terms of being that entrepreneurial? And I mean, I'll even make ask a more leading question. Did it help to be in Florida at that point where you're sort of where the competition, it's not New York, right? There's not Silicon Valley, like probably somewhat less competition. It's a little bit like the the Malcolm Gladwell theory of of hockey players, that if you're a little bit older and bigger, you have more confidence, and it helps you later on. Do you buy that?
I buy the Malcolm Gladwell thing. You mentioned a couple things, so I'll say that like Florida, I don't think was an advantage. I imagine if I was in New York, I would have really excelled. It just there was more deals, more network, more physical concentration, and I was like I was a high performer. I would have done much better in New York than I did in Florida. The confidence thing got me. That's my by the way, that's my opinion. The confidence thing got me to certain places. I don't know where this thumb came from. That's weird.
I have no idea either. That was kind of amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the so the confidence thing got me to certain places, but there's like this expression, what gets you here won't get you there. And I think in a lot of ways, I never achieved what I believed uh, could be my full potential. And I'm still in the process of kind of figuring out what is my full potential. What do I want to achieve? I have some of these goals, some of them still still forming. But I think that confidence was a major blocker for me too. So yeah, it created all kinds of successes that looked really really good in the context of those situations. But I think there was a lot I missed out because I had this lone wolf mentality. Because I was kind of like doing stuff on my own. I had a distrust of others. I had control issues. I think because I was so cocky, I didn't think anybody could do any. I just thought I could do everything the best, and I became a single point of failure. And also, I'm like, obviously, I'm not the best at everything. I'm like really good at a couple things, maybe special, but mostly I'm average. We're all mostly average at the average thing. So anyway. That's my
So
thoughts on
you're
that.
sort of skip. I mean, I have. It's funny because I actually have lots of questions exactly along these lines that I was sort of saving towards the end. But since you brought them up, I'm going to sort of jump right in. Like, so on that first part, there were things that you missed out on. Like, are there more specific examples? Like, did you say no to certain opportunities? Did people not want to work with? Like, how did that manifest itself?
People loved working with me. I think I've been good at culture. And I think that might be a superpower. Um, Look, I think I didn't read books. I didn't study. I didn't ask for help. I didn't seek a mentor. I never looked for senior leaders. I never looked to hire people that had done it before because I was super cocky. So if you talk to me today, it's I try to get in a book a week. I go to school. I'll keep going to school. I don't delegate to people because I'm this thumb thing is out of control. Well, we'll have to investigate that. If anybody's listening to the audio, there's a magic thumb that keeps popping on the screen.
Yeah.
But
It's giving you the thumbs up though. It approves.
yeah, well, that's good news. I need somebody to approve of me.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome, runs deep. Um, so I delegated to people like with reservation because I thought this person's not going to be able to do it as well as I. And now it's very easy for me to not delegate, but to like share responsibility and empower other people because I totally believe that there's absolutely different perspectives and answers fall along uh, uh, I would say like a curve of probabilities in many cases, and there's no right or wrong. And I
More
think
Bayesian, but like some of that just sounds like maturation, right? I mean, what you're basically saying is that you're now smarter and wiser than you were as a young man. That doesn't, I mean, hopefully, right? So
yeah,
say we
but
all.
but
Uh, yeah.
but to your point, like, did that confidence help me get there? Sure, but that confidence was also like, if I had some humility, I may have gotten much farther. I've only been playing this humility game for less than a decade, I think. So it would have been nicer if if I had a couple decades in.
Did you have any mentors back then?
No.
Um,
I was so, but let me, but there was a thing. So there was a lot of like, show them, chip on my shoulder, prove myself. There was a lot of that. So there wasn't a mentor to maybe push me, but like, show my dad, maybe like I could do it. Eh, so no mentor, no.
okay. So all right. So let me just toggle back to the because I still actually want to get to Janover and but even before then the Dominican and even before then the Great Financial Crisis. Okay, so you built software. I take it to help. Was it to source or like what were you doing with mortgage leads? You were selling them, sourcing them, both. To whom? How?
I we so I ult- so I went to work for a shop, did sales there, set up my own shop, started as a broker. It was a very interesting story. I opened up Yellow Pages. I cold called a bunch of banks, and I was like, "I'm 18 years old, and I want to open up a branch of your bank out of my apartment." And there was a lot of like, "What are you talking about?" And one guy, uh, who didn't own a bank, he owned a lender. Said, "Hey, let's talk," and he gave me a chance. And I set objectives and I crushed them. I think not just because I was smart or hardworking, but I had the market I had nice win in my sales. Um,
But so what was the wind in your sales? You were going out there originating mortgages? Like, what were you
well, I
selling
did
them?
that. I did that. Yeah, yeah. So I started as a residential mortgage brokerage business, and I was generating leads online before leads online was a thing. And then
Like buying ads?
we were buying ads. We had like cutting edge websites, which would be embarrassing to look at today. Um, and and then we became a commercial mortgage broker, and then a residential and commercial mortgage lender, and then we got warehouse lines of credit, and then I opened up a real estate brokerage and a title company, and offered a full suite of services with like balance sheet risk. I was 20 nothing years old. I mean, I went from like working in my apartment with barely any furniture and hiring all of my buddies to building a business, and then to losing everything. And firing all my best friends and trying to help them find jobs, and you know crying.
So you took actual balance sheet risk. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't just original, yeah. And then when did you get the sense that things were going sideways, right? Because like the first, if I remember some of the stuff from living it, but also litigating it years afterwards, and then just continuing to be interested in it, right? There was early early creaks in 2006 even, right, where Goldman starts warning the street about some of the performance of lower tranches of subprime securitizations, et cetera. But then 2007 came and it was bad, and then it got good again. Like, what was your recollection at the time of the sort of highs and lows?
When you're a cocky 20-year-old kid that has blinders on, you don't see anything until the rug is pulled out from underneath you. So I remember the day that all of the deals in the pipeline died at the same time. That was a tough day. And then I remember taking all of my life savings and putting it back in the company and buying New Century call options with the other piece, because I didn't, I had,
Put your money where
I
your
was,
mouth is. Yeah.
yeah. Well, but look, I wasn't a student of history. I didn't understand market cycles. I did think I was smarter than everybody. And didn't need college, learned a lot.
Wait, so your
right there.
pipeline had completely dried up. You knew that there was no no demand, and you still went long New Century at that point.
Yeah.
What was the thinking? That everybody else was
Yes.
panicking and yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I might. I listen. It's embarrassing. The only thing that makes me feel better is that I was, barely 20 years old. But yeah, look, I don't think I was the only guy that exhibited that kind of
No.
behavior, but I'm not proud of it. Uh, it was extremely valuable, um, and I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for uh, my the idiotic behavior of my youth.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true of all of us. So does now feel anything like that lull between '07 and '08? Because '07 got bad. That was Lehman, right? And then it got good again, and everybody was like, it's gonna be fine, soft landing.
Um, so these are two. First off, we're in a cycle. It's the worst for commercial real estate finance than it's been since the GFC. I think the the interest rate environment and the velocity at which and the trajectory at which it changed is like just actually like reasonable that it happened, but still like a total shock, to the industry and to the world. Um,
A rug pull even
a
to
rug
not
pull,
just 20-year
even.
olds. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, to me, I feel like it was a totally expected outcome, or like a totally reasonable, like not very far along the bell curve outcome, right? From my perspective. So I think it was something that like I somewhat expected. Um, and even um, made like a couple small, long bond bets on it that worked out well. Um, but I don't have a balance sheet today. We're a platform, and we're introducing ancillary services into our platform. And I believe that there's an inherent anti-fragility to a two-sided marketplace, and that we're benefiting from dislocation in the market. And I think that we're going to have a very good outcome. And we're also playing in spaces that are highly government subsidized. So on the debt side, we do a lot of SBA 7A, SBA 504, Fannie, Freddie, FHA. These things that have
Wait, let's just back up.
sorry,
Wait one sec.
sorry.
Sorry. Just let's back up because yeah, like I think just like what is Janover? What does it do?
So Janover is a digital platform for commercial real estate transactions. Our core product is a two-sided marketplace for senior debt on commercial mortgages. A digital matchmaker for commercial mortgages. The reason it's important is because residential mortgages are generally super homogenous. Uh, they look the same and they all get sold to agency, most of them, right? A commercial mortgage is super heterogeneous. There's a million widgets and features to each loan. They don't all fit in the same box. You could have one bank with four bankers that do four different products that have no idea what the other one does. And the products that they do today may be totally different from the products they do tomorrow. And there's 10,000 banks and credit unions and tens of thousands of other
And just to be
lenders.
clear, when you say commercial mortgage, you don't mean necessarily for office. You just mean for investment purposes, like as opposed to like somebody buying a house.
So when I say commercial, I mean multifamily, 5 units or more, office, industrial, self storage, hospitality, uh, uh, business purpose property. I'm not going to live there, and if it is an apartment building, it has 5 units or more.
And so
Office is a very
and who are
small
the
part of what we do, by the way. Very small part of what we do.
so who are the customers and how do you make money?
Look, we have two customers. In the context of a two-sided marketplace, you have two stakeholders. Uh, if you're asking me, who do we pander to? I'll circle back on that.
Doesn't have to be pander.
Okay.
Whose problem do you solve? Like in other words,
Oh, we
who's
solve
got
both.
pain and then says I'm going to use Janover to solve that pain. And what does that
It,
look like?
Both of our customers have pain. If you don't have pain on both sides, a two-sided marketplace isn't going to work. So the borrower pain is I could go to my bank and I will never be insured I'm getting the best deal. It's not possible. There's too
And
many
you, in that case,
options.
is somebody, I want to buy a building. I want to buy
Yep.
the office building that's down the street from me, or the dentist office, or a 10-unit multifamily.
Yeah, that's right. If I go to my bank, I'm not going to get the best deal. You're like from like a probability perspective, it's just extremely unlikely. I'll get a good deal, maybe. In today's market, I might get no deal. Or I go to my traditional commercial mortgage broker, who, generally speaking, has a handful of lenders that he's working with, and maybe some of them take him on trips sometimes. And you're still not going to get the best deal. No disrespect to the traditional commercial mortgage brokers out there. Incentive is incentive. On the lender side, and I think very specifically about community banks, small banks, even medium-sized banks, credit unions, funds in specific markets, they don't have uh, access to necessarily to the deal flow that they're best suited for. And we do have the benefit of, look, we have a very large captive audience. So for a lender, we give them two things. We say, we'll send you deals in your strike zone. Give us that first party data so we know what your strike zone is at any given time. And then we attach that to kind of like 120 million property records that we pull data on. But give us your first party data, and we're going to send you deals in your strike zone that you could bid on, and we're going to collect more data as you bid on deals. And also, we're going to make it so easy for you to identify if it's a fit, underwrite it, say yes, say no, request documentation, and submit a quote, that it's like a game. And as a result, we have nearly 10% of the FDIC insured banks in America on our platform, more than 35% of the top 100 credit unions by size on our platform. And people are happy, including me.
And you make money. You make money off of like a commission, or like as a percent of GMV. I mean, I guess not GMV, but loan size, or is it like a subscription? How does it work?
Yeah, transactional right now. We take a piece of we take a little piece of the top of every deal. Sometimes it's paid by the borrower, sometimes it's paid by the lender, sometimes it's a combination. Um, but we have other products either that are existing on our platform or that we will be introducing into our platform in short order, and all of those are subscription and recurring.
And like, how do you? I mean, like, why hasn't somebody done this before? Like, what's your edge, or the right to win, so to speak? Like, what makes it different and better?
Yeah. Well, so if you talk about why the large incumbents haven't done it before, they didn't have to do it to get where they are because the ability to have this technology didn't exist, and now it's an innovator's dilemma. It's Kodak, So there's inertia and misaligned incentives at the top. So I think that very
But
very
there,
difficult.
there was tons and tons of like commercial real estate lending over the last couple of years. So clearly there was like a lot of deals getting done, right?
Yeah, and it was very easy. So nobody had to change anything. And again, if you talk about incumbents as large commercial mortgage brokerages, um, inertia, misaligned incentives. The top sale, you don't want to upset the top salespeople. The top managers don't want to take a risk. Why would they take a risk? They're getting paid. So that's on the inertia side. I think there's a lot of small companies and startups that tried or have introduced a product that is super innovative and possibly useful, or in some cases quite useful. But they had a shortcoming also, which is the same business model and the same distribution model. So I think many of them built great products. Some of them even prettier than ours. Not that pretty is the proxy for quality. But they didn't have the distribution. So we've gotten very lucky by having a very robust distribution model with with like near zero acquisition cost on the lead side. And we've created a very useful strategy that we're kind of benefiting from network effects on the lender side, where acquisition cost is extremely low also. So this super low customer acquisition costs have given us a lot of room to make mistakes, learn, and excel. And we were building it while we were flying it. So got lucky.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Like were you how are you flying it? Did you try to originate your own like were you a borrower
Oh,
or somebody else? Like
no, no. So when I'm so sorry. When I say flying it, I mean like we were running the platform while we were putting it together. So we started when it was an MVP, and uh, we had to build the stuff that we needed while we were going. So 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it was like technology and bubblegum. And now we've gotten to a place where I think we have just a world class, totally functional, end to end platform. But I think that
what
our
was is there an origin story? Was it like one day you were
yes.
sorry. Was there an origin story? Like was it like, an aha moment where you said this is an underserved or inefficiently served part of the market and I'm gonna do this and this is why?
Yes. Yeah. So I was raising money for a deal in Miami that I was a GP on, and with a few partners, and I had to put together the debt and the equity. And I don't remember how long it took, but let's say 2 years. It was like a 40, $45 million deal, give or take. And I had to raise all of the debt and all of the equity. And my experience, even though I had a bunch of commercial experience, uh, I did a lot of residential in the last cycle, and it was always in the middle. So now I'm a GP and I'm doing the exercise, and it was brutal. It was reaching out to hundreds of banks with an OM, going back, changing the OM 50 times. They need like an analyst and an assistant to help me change the model in the OM over and over again. Go find new banks. Okay, come back. Then go out to all the equity funds, and it was a terrible process. And I raised the money. We have a beautiful building in Coconut Grove, excellent occupancy, real class A institutional asset, and my blood, sweat, and tears in there. And I thought that there should be a better way. I did not have a grand vision at that point. I was just like, hey, maybe we could do this better. Um, and the same thing was like the nexus of our digital properties. And I think our digital media company which has like this amazing SEO, has really has given us the ability to make mistakes along the way, because we've had this unbelievable amount of inbound borrower requests. And that was a function of, it was a friend of mine from Bercadia that called me. Uh, and like, long story short, he's like, Blake, come get back in multifamily. And I was looking around online to see like, you know, what is the state of multifamily finance? And there was no information, or every website looked like it was built on Windows 95 in the days of Windows 95. And I was like, oh, I'll just make like a really easy website that explains all the basic functions of like a multifamily loan, and all the different features. And I was like, all of a sudden on the first page of Google with very little effort. Again,
Hmm.
not the smartest guy in the room. Um, and so these two things worked together really well and gave me a platform, by which I was able
So
to.
other people started inbounding, like they also were trying to get into the business, and like I mean, it would seem to me that yeah, I guess that some of it's intentional, right? Like the sort of opacity is a moat, right? It means that experienced players get to parlay their experience into more experience and keep outsiders out.
That's right. That's right. We're breaking the chains.
Um,
I just want to say that, like, there's a lot of like, we're doing it for borrowers, and I want to say that we're also doing it for every community bank in America and every credit union in America that is a better product, better service, better understanding of a local market, or for a specific loan, that ought to be winning deals over Wells Fargo, and they're not, because Wells Fargo has, I don't want to say they have a great brand. That brand's been like, but they have a lot of boots on the ground. And so it is for both sides of that marketplace.
has the vision of the company evolved at all since you got started?
Yeah. So so like, over the last few years, it's been very interesting. It was, we were saying, a platform or an operating system for commercial real estate. um and we talked about that a lot. And sometime like 18 months ago, we were like, you know what, it's too broad. We are like we want to build that, but we're building, but like right now we're like the vision is to be like the digital marketplace for commercial mortgages. And over the last 3, 4, 5 months, it's been like, you know what, like I think the platform thing was right, because we have an amazing captive audience, and we have the ability to offer them a suite of technology enabled products to make their commercial transaction better and easier, faster, lower friction, smarter, whatever. And so now we're moving back towards that holistic platform approach. Uh, but it was
And this is
always.
when you say them, you mean like the GP, the borrower.
Oh no, oh, right, okay. Uh,
Yeah.
in this case, the borrower. Uh, but we do think that we have some things that we can offer lenders that could be exceptionally helpful, including our bits and pieces of our generative AI applications.
Um, Interesting. I want to come back to that. But first, like a more fundamental question, I guess. Like, so you started this, but probably 2.5, 3 years ago, right? Like, and
More
then
middle of 2019.
okay, so right before the pandemic hit, then there was a year of or a year and a half of big time. Like, I guess the more fundamental is you're doing commercial real estate lending now. Like, do people look at you like you're crazy?
Yeah, they look at me like I'm crazy, and I look at the last quarter and I say all of our competitors are down 60, 70, 50% year over year, and we're flat. So it's a pretty material delta to the market. And not that flat's the goal. I think we're going to have an excellent outcome. But yeah, people think I'm crazy, and I'm okay with that. Not that's not a factor that I consider. I think uh, if you want to make a high conviction bet that makes sense based on the data that you have, and that's where I am. That's what I'm doing. Can't be more high conviction. 90, God knows how much, 95, 97, 98% of my net worth is in this company. I mean, so maybe I'm the same crazy kid that I was telling you about earlier in the conversation. But I think, look, I've got on my desk, I've got a bust of Buffett and Munger there, and I think
In that thumb
be
again. Yeah,
yeah, the thumb. I don't know what to do about that. Be
yeah.
greedy when others are fearful. Fearful when others are greedy. Uh, y- you know, I'm. I'd like to think. I think I'm risk averse, but people look at me and they're like, "Oh my god, you're a huge risk taker." But I think I'm super risk averse. So I think I'm making like the most risk averse decisions I could make in the context of my capabilities and my understanding of the world.
How has the industry changed the most in the last 10 years? Like, I mean, you've been in it a long time. Like, or even like, how has it changed? How has your sense of it changed? Like, are there any undersung heroes or overrated? Like, how has it evolved the more you get into it?
If you're asking how the senior commercial mortgage industry changed over the last decade, I'll say that there's been a much there was there's been truly there's been much more prudence in the market than there was in the last cycle. It may not look like it now when everybody looks at CMBS and office and that overlay, but that's a small part of the market. So I think lenders have been more prudent. Everybody got imprudent at the tail end of this thing, um, for sure. There was a lot of exposure and secondary exposure through shadow, lending and what have you. But net, uh, uh, much more prudence. um, I think the thing that I find attractive about the industry is that it's pretty much the same. Uh, there hasn't been big changes. The guys that ran it then run it now, and the business model hasn't materially evolved. Is there more stuff in CLOs? Maybe. Um, but I think it's pretty
I
similar. I
guess
think that's what I like about it.
part of part of my question is, I mean, I'm a precocious generalist myself, and I like to learn new things and jump around a bit, and but at the same time, I stay cognizant of the fact that I don't know as much as an actual domain expert. Like that's kind of how you learn is it's a little bit of humility and precociousness all wrapped into one. But what I found, is whenever I start something new, like it's always kind of amazing how much I thought I knew but didn't once you get like 3 or 6 or 9 months in. So that's kind of where I'm like, this is something you've been working on in a space in and around for a long time. You started
Yes.
this business in earnest 2019 as a
Yes.
domain expert. Like, have you become even more of a domain expert? Like, are there things that where you now gained an appreciation that you didn't even as an expert 3 years ago that you didn't have?
Well, I'm not one to qualify myself as an expert in anything, though I could see how the case could be made that I am a domain
I will
expert. So
qualify you officially. Yeah.
I respect that perspective. Um,
Yeah.
I want to say that the fundamentals of commercial real estate finance and the behaviors of banks and lenders, depending on what they're doing with the loan, whether it's on their balance sheet, what their leverage and capital structure looks like, uh, if they plan on selling it. I think these things are like uh, have been these behaviors and structures haven't fundamentally changed in a very very long time. So I've spent a lot of my time not going deeper into something that I think is, fundamentally pretty simple when you think about bank incentives, bank structures, CMBS incentives, CMBS structures, and market cycles and interest rates being the financial gravity that they are. So I think these are like very simple concepts. And maybe I'm being, uh, I'm not trying to be glib. I think it's like, I don't want to give too much credit to any of us in the industry. These are pretty simple concepts. So I spent a lot of my time homing my skills or honing. I believe homing or honing might work. Uh, uh,
I think you hone skills and you home in.
you
But
home
yeah,
in and you hone skills.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can do
Well,
them at the same time. You can home
now
and
that
hone.
this is what happens when you drop out of University of Florida. Uh, so
That's right.
so
It's been
I've
downhill
spent
since
a
then.
I've spent a lot of time getting sharper in other places. Before coming into this, I did have a background, a very very like I had some background in coding. I got separated from it for a long time. I got to get involved with having a bit of an engineering org along the way, and that was nice. But I've got to spend more time around fundamental principles. So I think generally speaking, I've spent a lot of time improving my fundamentals across the board, uh, improving my lattice work of mental models. Not to be cheesy, but Munger deserves a shout out. You know, what a life, what a guy, um,
Yeah.
and and uh, and yeah, going back, getting re-educated on the facts, and being very curious, asking everybody lots of questions. I know the pain points of a commercial mortgage, and I know the fundamental incentives of the industry. So I have a million questions everywhere else, and anybody that gets in my way is just I will berate them with questions until they lose their patience with me.
Nice. Is there a like what in the like is there anything new or innovative or like is there a GP model that you think is exciting or different or an asset class that's probably underappreciated relevant, relative to its value or overappreciated? Like do you have an X consensus commercial real estate take?
Okay. So I'll give you like a macro take on part of the market. I won't make a prediction because I don't take people seriously that make predictions, at least about things that are going to happen in the next 1, 2, or 3 years. Give me a 10-year
Yeah.
prediction, and like you've got a coin toss. Um,
Yeah.
Look, I don't think there's innovative GP LP model tokenizing, etc. I don't see it. I respect all of the people that are smarter than me that see things that I can't see. I don't see it. Maybe I'm a dummy. Um, but I'll tell you what I see. I think like Office is going through a cycle now. I don't think it's the end of Office. I remember two end of retail cycles that happened: the end of retail from Amazon, the end of retail from COVID. More than 60% of shopping still happens in physical retail. Most of that is from the younger generation, which like I think people are surprised to hear. So Office reprices. Um, you know, Infill Class A urban office and suburban office isn't going to go away. Is hybrid a thing? Does AI change things? Yeah, is BlackRock going to take a loss on its non-recourse loan that some regional bank or CMBS lender is going to have to eat, and then Blackstone is going to buy it and get a new deal and be able to reprice the rents. Yes, and we're a tech company, and we're more productive in the office. Half of our team is remote in other places in the country and other places in the world, but there's a special serendipity and productivity to being together physically. That and we're tribal creatures. It is very very hard. Uh, just okay. Last thing on the subject. Nothing is ever as good or as bad as we think it's going to be. So if you're picking up some sick Class A office at $60 a foot and you're worried, like I think you're getting a great deal, and go get them, but get non-recourse debt if you can.
So are you buying, would you buy, like, at what point do you start buying San Francisco, or I don't know?
I've got, I I don't want to politicize the conversation. I'm more of a buy Florida kind of guy, but
Everybody's buying Florida.
so yeah,
So you think
not at
even
today's
buy more Florida?
no, not at today's price. So
Okay.
I think everything is a function of price. If you could buy it well, San Francisco or anything else is a great deal. So in the context of office, can I buy it and then improve it or have budget for TI and LC and have a competitive enough rent where I'm going to be the winner? I think you're going to be the winner. San Francisco, Silicon Valley, these things don't go away. New York City is not going to go away. And if these things do go away, it takes everything's going to go away eventually, right? Like given enough time, everything will happen. Right? Like a monkey will write a symphony or Moby Dick or whatever. So, but this takes a long, long time. And I also think it's not the most likely, outcome, the absolute implosion, the long-term implosion of office space.
You're not the doom loop. You think that there's just an enduring, staying power to those cities. But it wasn't true, say, for example, of like St. Louis, or maybe Detroit, or
Yeah,
potentially Chicago.
Chicago.
So
I'm not sure that
potentially,
belongs there.
yeah.
Yeah, so Detroit had it had a concentration. The concentration was auto. So if you want to if you want to make um, if you want to make if one would want to have a thesis about San Francisco, I don't think that the fundamentals of that thesis ought to be what happens with office. The fundamentals of that thesis is: does Silicon Valley go away or become significantly less significant, or does it or does the human centricity of technology and innovation, does that change, and are we in a new paradigm? And if we are in a new paradigm as a function of maybe generative AI or AGI or something else, then office is not the conversation, and San Francisco is not the conversation. It's like the conversation is UBI or or the meaning of life. I don't know.
It's always the meaning of life. I mean, yeah, I guess, like, so are you, like, it's the decoupling of work from living is not necessarily where you're going with it. You're just saying that a whole new paradigm of of, of economics in general, not like, the Mark Andreessen, you sort of the most bullish version of the remote work hypothesis is just that you don't have to work where you live. I mean, you don't have to work where you live. I mean, something I think about all the time is just sort of like, why is it so hard to recreate these New Yorks or these Silicon Valleys or even like the Ivy Leagues? They're all basically the same thing. They're these kind of like repositories of really high quality social capital that has its own center of gravity. It attracts people, go to Princeton or whatever it is because there are other really smart people who go to Princeton, right? That's why you went to HBS, right? It's not for the classes. So, like, why can't we create more of those things from scratch?
I think you can. I think that I think you can, and I believe that we will. And I also believe that there's these I think there's a couple pieces that are really powerful. So there's brands, right? So the brand of Princeton, the brand of New York, the brand of San Francisco. The interesting thing about the durability of brands as a competitive moat, if we're going to put it in the context of business, is that they become stronger over time, incrementally, every single day that they're around. Like that brand self reinforces. It's a very powerful thing, and we're quite tribal. And in the context of tribality, a word, I feel like if that's a word better than I.
Tribalism, maybe. Yeah, but I like
Tribalism.
tribality.
I'm going to go
Yeah.
tribality. So
Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah.
in the context of tribalism, you can work. You could be anywhere and work from anywhere. But do you want to? And I feel very comfortable arguing that we're fundamentally social creatures, and that people enjoy gathering together for work, and some might and some might not, and maybe there's a hybrid formula, and maybe there's not. I just I don't I think when I think about every past cycle, and I think we're in a cycle, and we're like the world can change and be different after this. I don't expect it to be the same, but in every cycle, as we're approaching the bottom, I'm not going to make up any more words. I had a good make believe word there. As we're approaching the bottom, it's the depth of despair, right? Like it's over. Every office has to be converted to residential with no windows, or turned into a gym, or a self storage facility. And it's just and like New York is done. I know people that would die for New York. like,
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
for sure.
and
But the outward migration continues, and for the same reason, like is it? I guess the flip side, you're building a company in Boca, right? Like, do you buy like Jacksonville, Fort Lauderdale, or these Tampa? Do you buy the hype? Like, are these really, like, are these going to be new centers of attention, or is this going to be, is it going to fade in a couple of years, and it's still going to be the New Yorker cartoon with New York City on one side and San Francisco on the other side with LA, and the same basic. I mean, I guess the West Coast is relatively, that was in the last 60 years or so, but New York, Philadelphia, the Atlantic Coast, the South Corridor it's been there, it's been going strong for a long time now.
yeah, look, I think these are beautiful cities. As people migrate out and maybe costs come down, people migrate back in. I think there's major political risk in so from a political perspective, from a taxation perspective, in the context of New York and South Florida, there's a weather perspective. So I think these are all things to consider. But now we're talking. Look, people are leaving New York and they're coming to towns and cities where other people live and where they know people that live there, and they're building their network there, and probably maybe they're going to go to the office there, maybe they're going to open an office there, and I only bring up office because that's where the conversation started. So the durability of New York, I think it's I don't want to live there, but I would be to bet against the long-term viability of New York is not a bet that I would take. If I had to bet on one side or the other, I would bet on the long-term durability of Manhattan and San Francisco. Neither of which place I wish to live. I think that Florida has some very attractive benefits. From a tax perspective, I think politically there's some things that are good about our state, and of course, politically some things that are bad about our state. So there's like certain incentives to come. Um,
How do you recruit? Like, I mean, talent is such a key part of of any org, but it's certainly like a technology organization. Where do you find talent?
Look, I think we have talent all over the world, right? Um, we have most of the leadership here in Boca, uh, and but some of the leadership is elsewhere in the world. So I want to build, to the extent I can, uh, most of the leadership team here, and at least somebody with domain expertise in each category here, on the sales side, on the marketing side, on the commercial real estate side, on the AI side, on the engineering side. So important that we have some of those touch points in person, but also that we don't close ourselves off, right? Like if I have somebody better somewhere else in the world, that better somewhere else in the world, uh, you know, gets the job.
Would you hire somebody like yourself who's jumped around? And I guess, I don't know, maybe it's not
Uh,
fair that you say you've jumped around because you've been in and around real estate for so long.
yeah. Well, okay. So two answers to that question. Would I hire somebody like myself? Like 100%. Uh, but the job is for me is like, here's a new shiny object, go get it, and like, leave me alone. Um, I jumping around jobs. I don't know if I've jumped around too much, right? I've had like over the last 2 decades, probably like four serious things. Um,
What did you do in the Dominican?
I operated one of the larger BPOs in the country, or like a big portion of it, business process outsourcing companies, like a call center. And then we had like some vertically integrated services, and we outsourced some services. And then I spun out a couple businesses from there, in consumer finance, a vitamin and supplement company, just like a crazy story.
But you
Which
didn't
I
jump around at all.
Well, that was all that. Oh, okay, fine, fine. But then you could say I'm jumping around now, right? Because we're doing acquisitions, we're adding new services, but it's all under the umbrella of Janover.
So that's interesting. So I guess, like, do you think more people ought to jump around, or is jumping around a superpower that you have?
I wish I could. I wish I was better at being focused and compounding, man. I'll just classify it as what got me here won't get me there, and say that I have moved around a lot. I do type A ADHD, tend to enjoy a shiny object or two. So I, I'm being hyper focused around making sure that everything and anything is around the core of our platform. And it's a hard no to everything else.
So somebody comes to you with a supplements business, and you're saying, I'm not
Hard
the game.
pass.
I'm not the
Hard
yeah, I'm
pass.
not the supplement king.
Off.
I mean, in some way,
Off.
it's like both a personal question and a general question. It's like, what advice do you have to other distracted type A generalists like this one, who, work on 30, 60, 90-day times, so get really curious about everything, have a really hard time focusing, and like, yeah, I've reinvented myself every 4 years or so. Like, and I don't recommend it for everybody. I certainly haven't figured out exactly how to do it. So like, but, I don't know, how do you do it, or do you just not do it? Should you just resist?
I can't give a should. What I could say is that what's so presuming that, like, one says, I wish for an outcome or a trajectory of outcomes similar to Blake's, which I don't necessarily wish on anybody. Though I am very happily married. I have two kids that I adore, and I think I like live a very, very blessed life. But inside my head, it is absolute shenanigans 100% of the time. But if one was said, hey, like, that's a trajectory I'm interested in, um, the obsessive behavior, and and the craziness has been useful. But I've had to point it in one direction and get a lot of help, and get very serious about doing things that I don't necessarily enjoy doing, like documenting strategy, documenting a plan, laying out specific goals, getting after
You do
them,
that. You
and
do
then
that yourself, or you find somebody to as a forcing function to do that for you, or make you do it.
so
What help
both.
have you
So
gotten?
I've gotten coaches over the years for sure, and I'll continue to. And we just hired an EOS implementer, and we're rolling EOS out inside the business, which is a fantastic product, and I think that it's like
What's
useful for
EOS?
that's entrepreneur's operating system. That's a
Right, right, right. Yeah.
Traction. Gino Willink, I think, if I say his name correctly. There's a couple things out there. There's Traction, which is EOS, and there's like the Gazelles scaling up, which I think is the Rockefeller Habits framework. There's interesting frameworks. So I'm a big believer in facilitators and coaches. I one of the things that was most so two things that are useful to me is like surrounding myself by like with actual cognitive diversity and actually being interested in what other people think, um, when we're going towards something together. A lot of introspection. So there's been a lot of you know looking inside. Why am I doing this? Why have these things happened to me? What are my kind of like upper limits that I'm setting for myself? you go why far enough, and it's something that happened when you were 5 years old, and you got to work through it. And I, you know, consistently working through that from a writing perspective, a goal perspective, a strategy perspective. I take this very seriously. So for me, whenever I'm unsure about something, or having actually, whenever I'm having anxiety about something, or I'm procrastinating around something, that means that there's like a challenge that I'm having that has ambiguity to it, and I have to sit down and write about it. And if I sit down and write about it, it clears up my thinking, and I can solve it. And then I organize that writing, and I share it with everybody on my team for their comments and feedback.
Only a crazy person would do that. Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to find people that enjoy working with crazy.
Yeah. As somebody who gathers their thoughts in writing and sprays it out to the world. Yeah, no,
I love your
it is
writing.
fun. Thank you. Um, is there anything that you've done a complete like 180 on, one way or the other, like something you thought was wrong turned out to be right, or vice versa, or something that you thought was going to be a huge waste of time and turned out to be amazing, or vice versa?
Yeah. I did 180 on education, reading, mentorship, hiring, everything. I went from a place of uh, lone wolf, sole practitioner, um, you know, forcing my way through it, learning on my own, learning from my own experiences, to being able to learn from other people's experiences, collecting mentors, constantly reading, constantly learning, um, understanding that even the most junior people in my company have significant things to add that I can't, especially if I've done the exercise of ensuring that there's actual diversity. Um, and Yeah, so my whole life is a 180. I was like, I thought it was so cool. Like, why would I be introspective? And now you give me a good self help book, and I'll be in the desert, you know,
Are you a
ripping.
Tony Robbins guy?
I'm not, but I get it, and I have absolute respect for anybody that is. But that's not my. He yells. He's a little aggressive for me. I don't need anybody to yell at me.
Is
I'm tough enough on myself.
Was there a major inflection point, or was this just like you
Yes.
woke up, yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah.
What was
Major
the inflection
inflection
point?
point. So so the major inflection point was like was was the third time I kind of lost, maybe the second time, depends how one would measure. I lost everything. I had to fire more than 100 people. I knew everybody first name. I had relationship with everybody. I went and I did this like fishing village thing, um, that I said I was like, oh, I'm going to go chill out, but I was like burnt out and heartbroken. Um, and it took time to process that. And when I came back to Miami, um, I met this guy, Ricardo, and I told him my life story. And I was like,
Where did you meet him?
uh, uh, LPM, Petite Maison, a restaurant on Brickell for lunch. And we were sitting for lunch, and I told him my story. I was like, I thought this was the most unique story in the world. And I was like, at a, I hit bottom, right? I'm like, I can't have this again. I can't lose everything again. And I need to, like, I'm not happy. What do I do? Uh, and he was like very matter of fact, like, oh, this is the yo-yo effect. And he gave me a book to read. It was my first self-help type book. And I made fun of him so much. Uh, and then I read it in a day, and I went back to him and I said, give me another one. And then I went back, I said, give me another one. And I said, now what? And it was a coach and a seminar and this and that. And, it was a real turning point for me. Yeah. Ricardo.
Hmm. But how did you get to Ricardo? Did somebody say you should talk to this guy?
No, we were doing commercial real estate stuff together. He's successful in the business. He's in um, this network called YPO, and he quite an accomplished, smart, successful guy that I looked up to. I would say that, don't tell him I said it, but I would say he was my first, kind of mentor, right? Like, besides my dad.
So
Right?
how do you find mentors? So like I also think mentorship's probably underrated. I mean, maybe it's appropriately rated, but like it's also like I struggle to find good mentors, and partly because I jump around a lot, and partly because I'm not terribly ingratiating. I like to challenge. To me, I view it as complimentary to challenge, but it means I care. But it's not always most upwardly flattering. But like, how do you? So how do you find? But there's also like an asymmetry. Like, why do they need? Unless they're feeling generous, like why? What do you have to offer them? How do you find them? How do you make them
First off,
match?
okay, so there's two types of mentors, but just about the feeling generous thing, I think you will find, or I have found, that people that are successful, that have had disproportionately good outcomes in life, are generally quite generous with this mentorship thing. Um, it's been very surprising, but I think there's a lot of give out there that I didn't expect. So when I think about mentors, I've got two kinds. I've got a bilateral communication type mentor, like Ricardo, uh, 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 like one of my board members, and others. But I also very confidently consider Charlie Munger a mentor, and you know I feel very lucky. So books, I think, are unbelievable. If you find a person, an author, a story that resonates. So Ryan Holiday is one of my mentors, for sure. Uh, Charlie Munger is one of my mentors, for sure. Nobody could convince me otherwise. What? Because he's not listening. He's not talking to you. He took the time. Ryan Holiday has taken the time to write these books, to distill these things, to go through these exercises. Just because other people are benefiting from it doesn't mean that he's not a mentor of mine, and he is. Um, and so, how do I find mentors? How have I found mentors along the way? I would say I got very lucky, but if we're being honest, I think it's a function of luck surface area. So it's me doing things that I'm not comfortable with. So I'm generally quite introverted. So it's been me going out, uh, you know, being completely the most authentic version of myself that I can be, thumbs and all, um, and
You got a lot of thumbs now. Yeah.
and asking for help. And I don't mind asking everybody for help, but I'm also willing to offer it, um, as willingly
But
as I'm willing to ask.
but even that, like, I'll push back on it because, like, if somebody cold outreached you out of the blue, like, there's a filtering problem too. Like, and the asymmetry still applies. Like, there are these people value their time. Their time is valuable. How do they choose? How do you get in front? Like, they might be
Yeah,
generous in theory, but like, there is a, you know, why you, um, rather than somebody else, and how do you even get in front of them? I think, right? I mean, that's like the,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's a good question. So I'll say that, like, I don't think cold outreach is necessarily a high hit rate. Though I will say that I have had success with cold outreach. But again, it's luck. I think that referral or that connection is the thing. So for me, it's been first I joined this thing. First I joined. I'm uncomfortable in large social situations. So the first thing I started doing was just putting myself in large social situations, and I was uncomfortable having any social media presence. So I set myself up on a social media presence, and then I said I'm uncomfortable and I have imposter syndrome. I joined Vistage, and got like a meaningful mentor at a Vistage, and then I said, well, what's the next thing? And I joined OPM at HBS, with a group of absolute all stars that I'm like living with. Again, something that makes me very uncomfortable. So I went to great lengths to surround myself by people that are uh, that have achieved some of the things that I'm after, or that I look up to, or that I think are accomplished. And I've made myself extremely uncomfortable going after these things, and I'm doing it over and over again, and I'm going to continue to. And in those situations, if I become the mentor, I'm extremely open to that as well. So I'm just trying to surround myself by people that I think that share similar values, and that have gotten to places, similar, or or maybe farther or whatever. So I think about luck surface area like that. I'm walking into the discomfort every day.
Yeah. All right. So very quickly, because I realize we've been going for an hour, 10 minutes, but just, is
It's
there,
easy to talk to you. I could do this with you all
yeah,
day. Yeah.
same. No, it's fun. I'm just, yeah, I'm more like, I told myself, like, you're not going to do another 3 hour interview again, because that's what keeps happening. But,
Oh, so
yeah,
should I be like should I have hurt feelings that you only want to talk to me for an hour, but you're talking to other people for 3 hours? I'm
no,
not
no, no.
I don't have three
It's
hours of intellectual
self-discipline.
content. Okay, okay.
No, I said we could go forever. It's more like I do these interviews and I get these transcripts that are so long I can't transcribe them. And the video, I'm like, geez, no, this is an hour. This is hours long. It's exhausting. Like, it's fun for me. I could do it all day. But yeah, I'm, to the sense I'm trying to build an information product here. I'm sort of cognizant of other people's attention span. So just really quickly, because these are some things I'm sort of curious about, like, and maybe I am overrating that. Like, I kind of consider you a sort of tech founder who's not didn't come from within the Silicon Valley, like the tech ecosystem, the venture ecosystem.
Right.
um I guess, like, you know do you have a view, like, do you have a view on that? Like, is that you think it's been a good thing, a disadvantage? Like, do you have a view on venture in general, like where it goes, where it might go in a kind of high rate world, or is that just so outside of your wheelhouse you don't care?
I care. And I have opinions, but like the venture's cyclical. So rates are high, venture's low, rates are low, venture's high, right? Was it an advantage or a disadvantage? For me, it's an advantage because I'm very happy with where I got. Venture, I don't think was the right path for us. I wasn't looking for a binary outcome. I was looking for a long-term, high probability good outcome that can become an excellent outcome and an unbelievable outcome over a long period of time.
That's right.
Um,
You're a public company. We didn't even say that. You
yeah,
went public, which is extremely unusual for a technology company that early in their life cycle. Yeah, I didn't.
yeah.
You went public by means I didn't even know was possible. Yeah.
Well, we did an S1, and I could talk about that too. So, but I'll say that like VC wasn't for us. I think we wanted to create non-ergodic circumstances. So I didn't want to be in a situation that could create a binary outcome for me or my employees or my stakeholders. So that wasn't on the cards. Too small for PE, so we just went and did it our way. Would I redo it the way I did it? Uh, Parts yes, parts no. Um,
Which parts now?
I wouldn't do crowdfunding again.
Yeah.
I would
No, I
uh,
think that's a pain in the butt.
I would take the time to put together some larger, a smaller group of larger investments. Go. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did everything I did in my life, give or take. Um,
But again,
but
I have never heard the we're too small for PE, therefore we're going public. It's never a I've never heard that before until you guys did it.
well,
It's
but
like it's like a special listing on NASDAQ, right? I don't remember what it was called.
no, it's not special. It's a regular S1. We didn't do anything unique. They're under the Jobs Act. They reduce a bunch of the restrictions around Sarbanes-Oxley to make it more affordable and reasonable for a small company to be public. I looked at how we could raise capital if we wanted to raise capital, what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it as a subject of as a function of timing. I looked at the cost to do the exercise, the cost to continue to do the exercise, kind of looked along the range of outcomes. I think that this is going to be uh, the best risk adjusted long term return for our shareholders. And, I'm
Should
58% of
more
that.
companies do it?
More companies should do the exercise because they don't even consider it. And I think that, like, I talk to people that have never had a public company, never run a public company, and they're like, "Why would you do that? It's so expensive. It's so difficult. It's so terrible. It's so this.
That's
It's
what
so
I
that."
said.
Right.
Yeah.
So besides you, there was a lot of people with strong opinions that didn't like that had it. So I think that this like dissonance or these opinions or whatever. Like my experience is that it's a financial decision. Um, and it's a decision on team. And what are you going to do with the stock? What is the reason you're doing it? What's it going to cost? Can you hire the right people or put the right people in place? For me, I'm having besides our stock price getting jammed up in the first few months, which is a short term thing. I'm having the best time of my life, and my job is more fun than it's ever been, and I get to work on things that I love and enjoy, and I get to do things that are more impactful than they've ever been. And I have this very cool thing where I get to create really what I hope and plan to be really exceptional long-term outcomes for a lot of people. And and I couldn't be in a better place.
It's great. And you're a buyer now, right? You're buying other companies.
Buying other companies. I've also bought my own. I'm also buying my own stock. We just filed these documents. So I'm personally still loading up on our own stock. And yeah,
I
we're
agreed self
very
here. I like it.
but
Yeah.
we're opportunistic on the M&A side. There's you know, we are in a very unique environment where we could be greedy when others are fearful, provided something checks all the boxes. Uh, can they plug into our sales, marketing, and distribution? Can they plug into our AI? Were they short on that before? Is it recurring revenue, subscription revenue, high gross margin, profitable? Is it happening at the same point in our customer's journey as it's happening with ours? Is it kind of juxtapositioned against our product where where there's like a hedge against our core product. So all of these things have to be
Is
true, and
there
we have to,
is
and there has to be an arbitrage opportunity.
is there a kind of company that you would want to, or product you'd want to buy that just isn't out there? Like where should people be building where they're not because you can't find the thing that you want to buy?
Will you give me a second to think about that? People should be building where they see the pain. I think and I think people should if everybody tells them no, don't do it. I don't know if that's a good enough reason not to do it. So I would be collecting a lot of feedback, synthesizing it, and then making my own decisions with data and conviction. I don't know what that thing is, um, but I look forward to finding it and getting my hands on it before somebody else does.
Oh, for sure. And I guess so. Groundbreaker was that's like a GP investment like a investment management platform, right? Like it's kind of like a
Yeah.
Juniper Square or something like that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. But
Um,
we're gonna eat Juniper Square's lunch.
which is just pine needles. It's disgusting. Um, that's what a juniper tree is, right? Actually, no, juniper berries. I actually have no idea. What is a juniper tree?
Okay, listen,
Um,
you're allowed to make stuff up too. I think I did tribality,
yeah,
which I
there you
want to
go.
be,
It is
which I
a
want to
it
be.
is a carnivorous tree. Okay. The I think we've covered a lot. I think I don't.
You've had enough of this. That's enough.
No, I haven't. I'm like I have other questions that I haven't yet asked. Like but like I think it's 4:25. I guess
Let's
I
pull
want
the
to do
plug.
very, very quickly. Let's do very quickly. Just like you're a Tyler Cowen fan. I like Tyler Cowen. He does his like over and underrated segments. So I'm just gonna run really quickly down the list and we'll end on that. All right. You know the rules.
No, give me the rules.
Oh, I'm just gonna say a thing, and you just tell me generally if you think it's over or under or correctly rated, and maybe very quickly why, and you can pass.
Okay. Okay.
It's just finger in the. I just think it's a
Well, let's
fun
go.
name
Let's
that he
go. I hope
does.
I, I hope I get it right.
Yeah. All right.
Let's
First
go.
one is BlackRock.
BlackRock is possibly underrated. I don't own it, and it's not investment advice. Um, but I wonder what that looks like as they continue to. I would many years ago I would have said overrated, but the way they've been able to consistently generate outsized returns, moving into infrastructure and sovereign, I'm just underrated,
Private credit, the dry powder of private credit, I guess.
overrated, overrated.
Well, why? Because banks are better.
No, so you know, there's dry powder. What good is it if the return profile isn't out there? So if all the dry powder is looking for 20% IRRs on like low leverage senior debt, like why is it interesting? I've been hearing about dry powder for years now. What does it, what does it mean? If it's competitive capital, it's interesting. So I don't see, so it's overrated.
The commercial real estate wall of maturities.
Totally overrated. Like there's a wall of
Love it.
maturities every single year. Commercial mortgages are balloon notes. They're all 5 to 10 year notes. There's a wall of maturities this year and next year and the following 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 year. So what's interesting in maturities now is a section of the market. It's the high leverage, shitty bridge loans that were made, many without interest rate caps, by certain lenders to certain borrowers that were betting on cap rate compression, and they're going to have a bad time. And there's elements of the office market that are there, but this is like a small piece of a massive wall that exists every single year. Most of the just a second longer. Most of the 5 and 10 year loans that are out there are on sound properties that appreciated significantly from a cash flow perspective, that benefited from inflation, and they're going to have owners that are pissed that they're moving from 3 to 6% or 3 to 7%, but the property is going to debt service. So, like totally overrated.
Up again.
Yeah, I have to.
Yeah.
I have to Google what the heck is going on here.
Harvard Business School, HBS.
Underrated.
All right. Middle management.
Overrated. Back to HBS.
Okay.
it's not. No, I had to think about it. I guess I'm supposed to go fast, but I'm not fast enough. The thing about HBS that's underrated is the quality of the cohort of humans that they put together. So the classwork, the professors, the case studies, the frameworks, first class. But there's other first class schools. The quality of the cohort of students that they put together, whether it's within the MBA, whether it's in OPM, whatever it is, that is totally underrated and the most exceptional part of Harvard Business School, as well as the beautiful property and the bunny rabbits everywhere.
I don't know. I agree. I mean, it's the people that make the place. It's not the classes. It's, if you can persuade a bunch of very talented people to go somewhere because you've persuaded them that other really talented people will come, then they will go. LLMs. Not the degrees, large language models, AI, ChatGPT.
Yeah, like unbelievably underrated. Unbelievably underrated. Massively underrated. I think that just
so you're okay.
So we are, in a lot of ways, we're large language models. We think way too highly of ourselves. The amount of things that this nascent LLM, yeah, you got it.
Got a little one who just popped in. Sorry.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So the amount of probabilistic, however probabilistic it may be, the amount of problem solving and like this contextual, high empathy, understanding, or I don't want to anthropomorphize it. If we take ourselves too seriously, these LLMs are already able to do many of the things that junior employees do, that senior employees do. I am scared and excited about what it looks like in a year, 2 years, 3 years. I've watched the trajectory. We've built a ton of stuff on generative AI. We're super involved in the industry, and the things I see.
Which model do you use?
Look, the best model out there is GPT-4 Turbo. So, we played with plenty of other things, but at the end of the day, GPT-4 Turbo is the best. It won't be for it. Like that's It's already changing. Anthropic's creeping up. The Claude 2 isn't bad. Some of these open source ones on Hugging Face are really getting there. Uh, it is unbelievable. Super underrated. Super underrated.
What about the talent war for developers or engineers in that space?
It's
Or is there none?
ridiculous. So I think
Okay.
everybody, no, not everybody. I think 80 or 90% of the people that are building their own LLM are wasting their time and wasting their investors' capital. Build a wrapping, whether it's in a vector database or it's fine tuning or training or some super prompting mechanism or something like that, to rely on the hundreds of billions of dollars that are being spent on Llama, GPT, Bard, and all these other, and Anthropic, and all these other models um, out there. I think GPT-4 will be the best for now, and then like maybe it won't be. And so make sure you have a mechanism that can plug into. Okay, modularize your development so that you could switch between models. And because so much money is being invested, the prices are being driven to zero. That you can't be competitive with an LLM. You can only be competitive going very, very deep in a niche, I think.
In other words, you mean at the application layer, like you're not going to beat Facebook or or Google at building the. So in other words, who's wasting their
Even
money?
if
Are
you
you saying that
do,
Google's wasting their money working on
no,
the LLM or other? Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know if they. I mean, I don't know if they are or aren't wasting their money, but I know a lot of people are like raising money to build LLMs or even to build fine tuning applications or frameworks on top of LLMs. And I think the highly customized application is going to win. But I think the leader in the LLM market is going to constantly change. I think open source is going to get there. But I just think most of the people building LLMs, like there's not like a great use case for it because OpenAI, Google, Microsoft vis-a-vis OpenAI, Anthropic via Amazon, right? Like these guys are going to
Yeah.
invest unbelievable amounts of money to build, a better and better mousetrap.
It's actually interesting, right? Because Amazon doesn't, right? If you work with OpenAI, like you don't even own your own model, right? Don't they host it and then you just sort of interact with it? But AWS gives you the option of. It's not like that, right? It's
No,
more
they
flexibility there.
so they have their own models. So the model is hosted, but what you do to the model is yours, whether it's via a super prompt or via fine tuning or through your own vector database or what have you. So you can build your own custom applications. It's not fundamentally different from it's just giving you a framework, right? So it's like here's English language, but the book is yours. So
Right.
and I think the leader is going to constantly is likely to constantly change. I don't see a case where like OpenAI has a sustained competitive advantage in the quality of its most successful LLM unless they have something that I don't quite understand, which is super likely, right? But like they have the brand, and they have a great enterprise product, and they have a pretty easy API, and they have a subscription. So they've got some great stuff, but I don't think it's likely that they remain, with the highest accuracy uh, um, chat LLM.
Interesting. Okay. Last one, iBuying, like Open Door, Zillow's, well, Zillow's out the game, but
Ugh.
Open Door, I suppose. You don't
I
like it?
mean, no. I remember being at HBS in their inaugural fintech program, and they sent a leader from one of these organizations. I won't say who, and this was in 2019, and he was like, we're gonna iBuy. Now look, let me be clear. Like in the long-term viability of that business model, like being valued as a tech company, but actually kind of being a REIT that doesn't distribute, that makes like very high leveraged bets with possible adverse selection, from the sellers. I don't like. I think some of these VCs crushed it. Right? They said the market will receive this model well and will price it well, in the context of a world where interest rates are approaching zero and real estate's ripping. So I think like I
But
think it
don't
just
but don't you think that like that the residential market needs a market maker? Like it should have like a market neutral like middleman that has the balance sheet so that you don't sit there and have to like that period of like, okay, I'm gonna go buy a house, but first I have to sell my house and like no. I mean, to me, it actually there should be a market maker there, and that's how I understand their balance sheet. They should be risk neutral. They're just volume based. It's just like instead of this ridiculous exercise of where yeah you have to like sell your house and buy a house at the same time and time it just right, or you just when you find a house to buy, you buy it, and when you sell, you sell, and like those don't necessarily have to be like a three-leg transaction.
so the reason um okay. So the fundamentals of iBuying, where Zillow said we're going to use our data and we're going to buy properties in certain markets, fix them up and sell them, and we have the data that says that we're getting a good deal. That data works really well when a market's moving up, when interest rates are lower, when interest rates are moving down. Um, I think it's absolutely subject to adverse selection, right? And I think they experienced all those things. Um, I think it was a quite poorly timed. I think Open Door, you know, is different. But the fundamental thesis of there should be a market maker. I think of us as a market maker for commercial mortgages, right? Aggregate the data of all of the lenders,
Is what I
get
was
them.
asking. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I believe there should be a market maker for everything. But I think iBuying in the context of having a balance sheet and doing this is not sustainable. From a or you're either not going to get the technology company valuation, or you're going to have the leverage and you're going to have all the risks that come along with it and the cycles and the failures. Um, is there a way to do it? Yeah, I haven't. I don't think it's. I don't think it's. Aggregating property and making a big also like the market makers when we think about real market makers we think about the stock market and it's liquid so highly liquid and the transactions can happen for dollars so
Yeah.
this market doesn't have that liquidity that velocity of transactions it doesn't have it and it doesn't have that size of transaction so because that's not there um, there's a way to do it. I just don't think that like
Right.
Zillow's iBuying is the way.
But
So
in
what were you gonna
fairness, liquidity begets liquidity, right? Like part of why it's not so liquid is because I mean it's not the only reason. Don't get me wrong; it's a big deal to move, and there's a lot of moving parts and et cetera, et cetera. But in theory, if it was a little easier to buy and sell houses, it would be easier to buy and sell houses, and people would do it more.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. But to your
oh,
question about Open Door and Zillow's model for it, overrated. To answer your question about does should this market have a market maker and is a market maker a better way for it to be? The answer is like absolutely yes. And will somebody solve it? Absolutely yes. Is it Zillow? I don't think so.
well, Zillow already they already quit, but Open Door is still hacking away.
Yeah. Well, if
And I
Peter
guess a
Thiel
part of it
is
is like
sorry.
yeah.
If Peter Thiel believes,
Um,
like you keep going.
Yeah, so there's some other fancy people there. I think
I
Spencer
know.
Raskoff. Oh no, he was. I don't remember. But anyway, all right. I got it's. Let's call it. Let's call it a wrap. Um, because I could go on forever, and I can't do that. And I have to do more writing today. Amazingly enough. All right, this was awesome. I appreciate
It's
it.
awesome. Thank
You
you.
should definitely check out Janover. I don't know. I mean, I can't give it any more of a plug than you already have. But it's a cool company. All right, I'm gonna end the recording. But thank you.
This was amazing, dude. Thank you so much for having me.